We welcome all our school guests, and I always hate mentioning this thing, but I forget. We'll open the meeting with we do have a quorum here, a total of 5 board members. We'll start the meeting with the invocation by Todd Sutton and pledge allegiance by Teresa Grant. May we stand, please?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for all your many blessings, Lord. Lord, we just thank you for the safety that you spared us during the hurricane, Lord. And Lord, we just thank you for all the many blessings and time that was put into just being prepared, Lord. And we always want to be prepared to make sure that every student and staff member is safe. Lord, we just thank you again for what you've done for our school year so far, keeping everybody safe to and from school. Lord, we just ask that as we listen to these school improvement plans, Lord, that we remember that it's all about the students, not about us. In your loving name we do pray. Amen.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wooten, Superintendent Dr. Cosby, and members of the board. Johnston County Public Schools has 14 schools that have been identified by the State Board of Education as low performing. By definition, a low-performing school is a school that earned an overall school performance grade of D or F and did not exceed growth. End-of-year summative data is but one piece of information used to convey a school's overall achievement. Other aspects, including stakeholder perception data, positive school and community relationships, and educating the whole child by understanding the social-emotional needs of all learners and families, is also important. Tonight, our schools will share with you their plan for continuous improvement in addressing all aspects. As a point of celebration, the majority of our 14 schools showed significant academic growth gains in making progress towards exiting low-performing status. As a means of district support, monthly database problem-solving sessions and coaching opportunities will be provided, as well as the development of school support teams to help with continuous improvement efforts of individual schools. As a part of general statute, low-performing schools must submit plans for improvement to the State Board of Education. Prior to submission, schools should present their plans for stakeholder feedback, as well as feedback from the local Board of Education. Links requesting stakeholder feedback have been placed on each school's website, and schools tonight will reflect on their success and opportunities for improvement, as well as plans of action for you today, for your feedback. After consideration of the feedback received from both the board and community stakeholders, we would request that the board approve the school improvement plans at the October 8th board meeting. So presenting first is Ms. Catherine Trudell to present Clayton Middle's school improvement plan.
Welcome.
All right, we appreciate this opportunity, Chairman Wooten, Superintendent Cosby, and the rest of the board. It's just nice to be able to share the great work that we're doing at Clayton Middle. I did bring some folks with me. So this is Amber Wright. She is our instructional coach, and that is Magnus Hemans, and he is one of our assistant principals. And at Clayton, we all work on improving the school. So we hope that you see that. I don't know if this. Is this going to work? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the first thing that's in your packet That is a simplified version of our school improvement plan where we have put it on one page. That is what our staff sees because we do feel like we need to see it on one page if we're going to know what that plan is. We are very strategic about the things that are on there, and we work with our school improvement plan or our school improvement team to make sure that we're very focused on data and figuring out what are those most logical next steps that we need to take. And we do, we'll share some of those data pieces with you today that help inform where this plan is. So one thing that I feel very sure of is outside of brand new staff, which we only turned over 2 staff members, outside of that, if you walk through, it is awesome. That is a huge celebration for us. But outside of those folks who are still learning what's going on in the school, you could probably have every single staff member tell you what we're working on. And that's the most powerful part of what we do, that it is that is everything that we do. We don't allow other things to rob our focus. So just to consider the things that are informing our practice, we don't want to go with intuition or gut until we have really grounded ourselves in what the research is. So in the 3 years that I've been at Clayton, these are really the comprehensive pieces that we have looked at as an entire team. So we have looked at high reliability schools and looking at that hierarchy of how you might move through an infrastructure approach to improving your school. Dealing with that safety and security first, which is what we dealt with first, and then we start moving through the instructional components. We have looked at reading next, writing to read to help inform how we might think about reading in our building and how we might think about writing and how those two intermingle to create achievement for students. We also use classroom instruction that works, that is Marzano's packaging of instructional strategies. But instructional strategies are instructional strategies. They are the ones that bubble to the top. They are the ones with the effect size. We just needed to have somebody's packaging. And then really looking down to the bottom, that's the other one that has been a big part of what we've been doing recently is the writing revolution, which used to be referred to as the Hockman method. It is out of New York City schools, and it is an amazing way to teach strategic writing to students. And we've allowed that to be part of that evidence-based body that informs how we're going to teach students to communicate as they grow into adults.
So after looking at all the choices, we did go with Marzano's phrasing for the high yield strategies. So we've looked at creating a professional development plan around those strategies throughout the years. We check ourselves, we measure ourselves using an administrator audit as well as a teacher.
So in thinking about just the fact that we do have to have a metric for how we're seeing how far are we getting, how far is there to go. We do have an admin audit, and the other piece that is in your packet is actually the 7th grade version of what that teacher group gets. We also recognize that this is part of a feedback to staff so that we can see how are we doing, what things might bubble to the surface. So this is actually the one that we have done at the beginning of the year. We do it 3 times a year. What you will notice that what we've highlighted is what's important to us, what's important about what happens for kids so that they develop the skills and habits of mind that they need. What our group walked away with, and we didn't even have to tell them, we just had to give them data, was, oh wow, we're not really engaging the kids in discourse. And then there were lots of questions about, well, what do we really mean by that? And so we had good discussion about, well, what does discourse mean? And that me talking to you is not discourse. Me asking you a closed question is not discourse. It's not until it's a two-way street, and then we look at, well, is it justifying? Is it evaluating? Is it analyzing? So all these different things it can be, but they got to come up with that and see that they need work on it. So that's going to inform some of our professional learning that we're going to do next. Up on the screen, what you can see is that there's this little card that's tilted. For those people who don't love bar charts and pie charts and graphs as much as I do, For all 3 audits, each teacher gets a specialized card. And while we put Clayton feedback, that's actually a card that a teacher got. And they do get their glows and grows. We want to tell them everything that is wonderful about them, and then give them one logical thing that they might do differently. And it depends on the person. So it might be, hey, I saw you were doing your notes and they were fill in the blank. How are students processing? Let's add that in. Or it might be, I don't think you're expanding your leadership the way that we need you to because you're so phenomenal. What are you going to do to help push others? So it can be a spectrum depending upon the actual teacher. And then with the teacher audit, without us, because at some point they need to be without us so they can have conversations that they don't want us to hear. They go as groups, and so the first one from this year, the 8th grade and the 6th grade, where they went and observed each other, and this Friday they will provide feedback to each other on what they saw, and our 7th grade and our elective or enhancement teachers, they observed each other. For the next 2, they will be in vertical, so ELA teachers will see what each other's doing, math teachers, and then they can talk about what are those component pieces that are not only in our school focus, but within their own discipline, and what does that look like, and how are they doing on the goals that they set within their vertical teams. There we go.
So we developed a 4-year plan around these high-yield strategies, and we've been diving deeper, looping them all up, because it comes to a certain point where they're not just separate. You see summarizing, note-taking, along with cooperative learning, along with getting the feedback from the teachers. So we've been building that throughout. To measure ourselves on it, we have created our professional development proficiency scale that is also in your folders. Our teachers, 3 times a year, self-assess themselves to see how are they doing, are they progressing, do they feel like they are exceeding, is this an area where maybe we need to back up and we need to do a little bit more professional development. Since since similarities and differences is such a high yield strategy used, it's one of the ones that we are planning on coming back to it to make sure that all these students are learning as much as possible within the classroom, because we do have them for an amount of minutes and there is learning going on.
So as Ms. Wright said, one of the things we've got to do is help our teachers pull these strategies together. And so that is why we put the writing strategies within our school improvement plan. And our team thought it was really important. Of course, it is a cross-curricular team, so it's nice to have math and social studies and elective teachers, and all of them say, oh, wow, we have to do more of this. So we are talking about how language is the way that we communicate and how we communicate whether we know something. So writing and speaking are really important aspects of being able to determine what kids do and don't know. So with the writing strategies, it actually teaches structures that will allow kids to put sophisticated ideas together. And so that's what we teach our kids, that, you know, if you want to have sophisticated ideas, then we have to learn these structures. And so we have a sequence that is 6th, 7th, and 8th, where they are taught in the classroom, and it actually blends beautifully with the new curriculum that we got. So it all fits together wonderfully. And then we have actually done training within the school so that our other content teachers would learn what these strategies are, and then they just use them. So we're not asking them to teach subordination or positives or any of these things. We are just simply saying, use that in the way that you ask students to process information. So we are excited that we do have a measurement tool, so we are actually collecting data on what are kids able to do and not able to do, so that we can track that over time and start to pair that with some of our achievement data and our growth data. And probably the most beautiful part of it is that we have not made it a mandate. And so I think we had 25 teachers-ish at the end of the school year in those work days when they are so done. They opted in to participate, and it was well outside of just our ELA teachers. And I think that was exciting that they see so much value in using these strategies and have talked about what better responses they have gotten from students as a result of that. So I think she did talk about the proficiency scale, and you'll notice that we do collect that beginning, middle, and end of the year so that we can track the progress on how they self-reflect on themselves. And so sometimes we even see where it drops back, and we've seen where they've learned more about it and realized that they are not as far ahead as what they initially thought.
So to measure ourselves with this, we really worked on our first strategy to really strengthen our core to make sure that we're catching all the students, that they have high quality instruction going on in the classroom. And then our second strategy focuses on what do we do with those students who have not gotten there yet? How can we enrich them, or how can we remediate them? So we've focused on creating and implementing a multi-tiered system of supports. And to measure it, we collect numerous data points, and we've really seen, you can see our scores that have grown based on just collecting that data and moving forward with that. So 3 times throughout the year, we put all of our data together. It's the state assessments from the district assessments. We also look at the children as a whole, focusing on their social and emotional well-being. We have student focus groups that come up in our second objective on our school improvement plan. And we take this huge state of the eagle, we look at it at our school improvement meetings. We talk about what data trends are we seeing, where are we focusing, where are we doing really well, where are we not doing so well? And they take that information, they talk about it at house meetings, so everyone within the school is informed by just every data point within our school, both academically as well as socially.
So, and I'm sure like you've seen the school data. So one of the areas that we needed to really work on was our students with disabilities, because we are designated a TSI school for that area. So we did, last year, we had one of our EC teachers who did a donors choose to get power reading, and we've seen great results from that. So they are using that with our students with disabilities who have goals in reading. We're also using Fontes and Pinnell with those students, and the Writing Revolution, which is the one we talked about earlier. Because it spans such a spectrum of skills, we are simply going back further to make sure that we are teaching students the boundaries of a sentence and things like that, if they do have those goal areas in within their IEP. And then this year, we're very excited because it's a little bit expensive. We finally were able to finish purchasing number worlds. So we are using number worlds with our EC population if they have IEP goals that are in mathematics. And of course, they talked about some of the data that we collect, and so we do screeners on our students. Both our EC population, that's something that we always do, but as students are brought forth from our house teams or our grade level teams, when they bring forth students who they're like, we really have some concerns, then we also do the screener so we can figure out, okay, what is our present level? And do we have a concern with academics, or are we looking at behavior, or are we looking at both? And so we do use the core reading assessments so that we can look at the vocabulary, the comprehension, and their fluency. And then if we need to, we go back further and start looking at their phonemic awareness and some of those things. And then we also use the number knowledge assessments and the placement tests so that we can figure out where are you in number world, so we can make sure we match you to the right resource. And then the last one is the writing assessment. While the other two are valid resources, the other one we made ourselves. So I guess there's not statistical value to it, but it's been great at informing us. But we're just starting to embark on making sure, what are those skills in writing that our students do and don't have, so that we can really strategically build those. And that has been helpful in starting to write some better present levels for our EC population.
All right, so the second objective we have here was to integrate social and emotional learning strategies in our school. One of the things that we did last year, we had an outside group to come in to do focus groups with our students. They compiled this data and it was shared with us, and we took it back to school improvement. So that was our first strategy there, and we'll continue to do that this year. The second piece is we wanted to integrate we wanted the teachers as well to have learning surrounding social and emotional learning. One of the things that we did at the very beginning of the school year was to have all our staff members watch the movie Resilience. We had some very powerful conversations surrounding that, and of course we discussed ways in which we can help continue to empower our students. in our half-house meetings, those meetings are basically used to discuss strategies how we can help to improve students' learning. So when we go to these meetings, teachers are strictly talking about how to improve students. Some of our teachers and both our counselors, they have had some training surrounding restorative practices, and we have started to have circles with this strategy. I think fixing the nest came from one of our teachers who thought, hey, this is a good way to fix the nest with our kids. And of course, I've sat in at least 2 of those circles, and we have already started to see some great results with that. We are also using the Panorama Survey that was done. Ms. Christie sent that out, and that also was taken to school improvement. Again, we love to hear from our students, and we have done also in-house focus groups where we have gotten data from our students, and those also have been shared with school improvement.
So basically our focus has been from the beginning that we needed to make sure that we looked at our core tier 1, that we didn't need to look at interventions until we started fixing that core, and I think it is well on its way. We do want to make sure that we continue to monitor the progress and we hold ourselves accountable to those data points. And I think we take a good, healthy look at them. And it's not about blame, it's not about pointing fingers, it is about growth and getting better. And we, from the bottom to the top, always try to model that I have not arrived, they have not arrived. And so here we are all still learning. And we also want to make sure that we do have that safe, collaborative culture in our school, because it's at the crux of getting ourselves to a better place. We do monitor that plan and look at all pieces of data, because achievement is important, but there's lots of other component pieces that allow us to actually realize that achievement. When we do communicate those outcomes, we do that through that State of the Eagle, which is 3 times a year, the monthly school improvement meetings, our committee reports, because we do have those committees that our school improvement team leads, and then we also make sure to communicate those to each of our house meetings, which every person in the building is within one of those groups, so that we constantly have this circle of information, both back and forth, because people need to inform school improvement, and sometimes things need to go back for decisions or for input. And this is the other part, is really just looking at how, this is a visual of how we do things at our school, and one of our staff members made it a couple years ago, and we just think it still is how we do business, that it is constantly a circle of reevaluating ourselves and figuring out what's the next step. Do we continue something? Do we not continue something? Do we tweak it? Do we change it? And sometimes the research informs those practices. I'm excited to say that our students with disabilities had tremendous growth this year, and it is positive. I think it's a 0.9, which we're very excited, and I think these things are working, and now putting number worlds in place. I can't wait to see what happens. And looking at the other subgroups that we have that we're lagging a little bit behind, they are also very positive. So what we do know is that because we do in-house data, the part we have to work on is our advanced classes. And I am excited about this curriculum, because the part that our teachers have always said is, wow, it's hard to find like grade level appropriate text and to have the time to do all these things that we want to do. And so now it's packaged and ready to go, and now they put their professional lens on it. And so I think it's just going to make the ELA classrooms that much better. So what questions do you have for us? I think we've talked enough.
What interested me was the cross-team or grade level evaluations, and I just had a couple questions about that. How is that feedback received from teacher to teacher? Is it a formalized method, or is it a conversation? Is it an email? And does that make it into your hands, or does that stay strictly between that level?
We are present when they are sharing the data with each other, and so they actually do collect data. And we have a tool for that we've agreed upon as a school improvement team. So they've had an opportunity to inform what that tool will look like. And then they actually get together and have conversations about, you know, here's what we collected, but here's what we thought was really cool. We wonder this. And so it generally is not It's not critiquing. And truthfully, I'll say some of it is, when I look at our teacher working conditions, the last one that we took, that tells me a lot about how things are being received. And it is very positive, and people stay, so I think they like it.
So with the restorative practices, I think we've been practicing them pretty heavy for several years now. As far as they go, have you received any feedback on these, I would say newly found disciplinary measures, but any feedback from your staff? That's the first question. The second question is, and you probably don't have it in front of you, what impact has that had on your suspension slash maybe like an alternative setting, maybe like ALC, ISS, whatever they're calling it now?
I do think it's had a significant impact, and I'm not going to quote numbers off the top of my head, but what I can say is, in the time that we've been developing these things, it's really been over the last 3 years that we've been developing it at our school. I think the year, if we go 4 years out, the suspension rate was over 20 per 100. And this past year, it was 8 point something per 100. And that's our in-house calculation. And with that, there's also been an increase in our students who qualify for free or reduced lunch. So while we have one, measure going up, we also have the suspensions going down. And I think the other part of that is, if you look at the teacher working conditions, and it's there's the question about, do our students know the expectations? It was 100% agreement. And do the students follow expectations? I think it was like 80% agreement. So nobody's mad at us for not suspending, because that can happen where people think you're not doing your job anymore. So the fact that our staff buys in and thinks that we are still doing our job, while we're also keeping kids in school, I think is a testament to the staff that's at the school. They're an amazing group, and it is not possible without so many of them there.
Thank you.
I just got a comment, and you just stole it, Ms. Trudell. I was going to ask about just, it sounds like the buy-in. Obviously, we can present the best plan ever, but if you don't have the buy-in from your teachers, it's not going to be fulfilled. And you just stole it. You're saying that they've got the buy-in, and it shows. And I commend you guys on putting this together and having everybody on the same team, locked arms, all in it and unified and knowing where you want to go.
Good point, because when the teachers and administrations buy in, the students buy in. So it's all works together. Yeah.
And that's going to be crucial with you exiting very soon, is that we have that buy-in. And I do want to say I appreciate all the effort that you've put into this with your staff, knowing that you are a short timer, but you didn't get the short timer syndrome. So we appreciate that. I've seen that many times in the business world, so appreciate that. I want to take the opportunity to tell you that wish you the very best, but thank you and your staff for all that you've done here. And you said you were excited to see how the number world played out, so maybe that means you need to stay.
I know, I'm going to awkwardly leave. No, but I do think the power is that it's the staff's plan. Yeah. It was never our plan. We didn't make it up. We didn't write it.
So that brings me to what I want to say. Throughout this whole presentation, all I'm feeling as an educator and a parent of students is empowerment. So you have not only empowered your staff to step up and take ownership of student success, you've empowered the students to take ownership of their learning and their behavior. And sometimes we forget as educators, right? So being able to look at them and say, here's your data. Now I need you to collect the data too. Is this what you want it to look like? How do we change that? Answering those important questions. And then this in front of them, this is the most powerful tool that a teacher can have. And if they have it in front of them all the time, no matter that you only do this 3 times a year, I guarantee you that majority of them can put their fingers on it immediately if you went in there and asked. Because this is the roadmap. This is the structure for the instruction that the students need to achieve. So very impressed. Thank you.
I just have one thing to say. Miss Trudell, for those of us who didn't get a chance to really sit with her and to work with her, she's an amazing leader. And I've always been told there's a difference between a leader and what's the other one? A boss. Yeah, let's put it that way. She's an awesome leader. And one of the things that she has done very, very well is to empower people. Our school improvement is actually teachers who are running school improvement. So that's what the beauty about it. So in terms of buy-in, then it's already there because they're helping to create that plan. So that's one of the good things that she has set the tone for. And we just hate to see her go, but such is life. Thank you.
So next, we have Corinth Holders Elementary, and Dr. Chris Kennedy is going to present for Corinth.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Dr. Cosby. I appreciate your indulgence. I'm playing a little hurt. I have been fighting the flu for the past 4 days, and yeah, so I'm going to stay right here. I know, that's right. I'm going to tell you, Ms. Tanner is passing out an executive summary of our presentation, just so you'll have the high points of what we're going to present. Well, thank you, thank you. Trust me, I am happy to be anywhere other than my house after the past 4 days. Well, thank you, thank you. I just, I've learned that one of the interesting things about being a 49-year-old with the flu is that it turns you into a lot like a 19-year-old college kid. My wife has moved out of the bedroom into the spare bedroom. She has stripped everything out of the bedroom. So I am sleeping on a sheet with a blanket and with a single pillow, because she said she has not put anything back over there until all this is done. I also generate a lot of laundry, and I've been subsisting on ramen noodles for about 3 days because that's all I've been able to keep down. So there's just a lot in common between folks that have folks at my age that have the flu and a 19-year-old college student. I want to introduce our administrative team. Elizabeth Tanner is our assistant principal. Michelle Butler is our AP intern. Heather Morton, our school improvement chair, was going to be with us tonight. She is also under the weather, and so she was going to have a part in this presentation, so I'm going to pinch hit for her as well. She has been out of school the last 2 days as well. Our school is eaten up in that time of year right now. So it is our pleasure to present to you our plan for continuous improvement for the upcoming year. Let's take a little bit of time to just kind of look over where we were last year and take a look at our celebration. So when we came to Corinth, we had an implementation dip. We backslid into a low-performing status. And one of the biggest areas in which we really struggled was in our EOG math totals. So as a school, over the past year, we raised our EOG math total 4.5%. But a big celebration is our lowest performing group was our 5th grade math, and they actually increased 13.4%. So we put a lot of energy and effort and resources into math, and it paid off very, very well. One of the things that really got us last year was our EVOS growth index. Our EVOS growth index was not where we wanted it to be. This year, our EVOS growth index increased a little over 5 points, and in fact, we just missed meeting growth this year. So we are just on the outside looking in. So we are definitely trending up in the right way. The other thing is that when we talk about our focus on subgroups, we met growth for all of our subgroups except our Hispanic students. So males, females, students with disabilities, white, black, all of our subgroups, we met all of those except Hispanic. And that's definitely something we want to take a look at going forward as our Hispanic population is increasing. So as you well know, North Carolina is the only state that operates on a school performance grade system that weights proficiency that weights proficiency more than growth. And so if it was a 50-50 proficiency growth ratio, we would be back to a C. So we have started trending in the right way, and we just need to catch those two things up. The other thing we're very, very proud of is that we had a strong level of satisfaction by both our students and parents on our Panorama Survey. Obviously, if you know Corinth, it is a great community environment, a great community school, and it means a lot to folks in our community. And so it's fantastic when we get that kind of feedback from our parents. Our opportunities going forward. Our growth increased, but our proficiency decreased. Now that's kind of an interesting dilemma. And what that means is that we did a great job with some of our struggle bunnies and with some of our non-proficient students. We did not do what we needed to do in keeping our proficient students at proficient and growing them and moving them up as well. We do have a continuing underperformance by our subgroups, which are our black students and our students with disabilities. One of the unique challenges for us is, as opposed to certain schools that have underperforming subgroups, these are our two smallest subgroups. So it really is. And so what that means to us then is small moves make big gains. And we also have the situation where some of these students are dual classified. So we have black students who are classified with disabilities. So if we can move those students forward, we have a big chance to move there. And one of our biggest concerns has been our cohort performance over time. We do a great job starting off, and then we backslide a little, and then we backslide a little more. And one of the things that we really discovered is that we are remarkably siloed in our school. We do a great job within our grade level. We take care of our babies while we have them, but we're not necessarily doing what we need to do when we let those babies go. And we're not necessarily doing what we need to do when we send those babies on. So we need our second grade teachers talking to our third grade teachers, our third grade teachers talking to our fourth grade teachers to help keep that cohort performance up over time. So what we decided to help address that situation is we had a unifying theme for school improvement, and that is called CHESS 2025. And that actually is a two-prong number there. So it's not just the year 2025, it's CHESS 2025. So it gives us a focus. The 20 part of 2025 is what are we doing this year? What are we doing in the short term? So that's the 20 for the 19-20 school year. These are our short-term goals. And this is what we're looking at in the short term. But as we start having discussions, we need to start thinking about where are we going long term. Our kindergartners who enter school this year will leave us in 2025. So where do we want to be as a school in 2025? What do we want our entering kindergartners to be able to do, to be able to have? What skills do they need to be able to have? Where do we want our school to be by the time those students leave us in 2025? So it's kind of a double entendre there as it goes, but the idea is that it helps unify that vision and really helps us own our students as a whole. So 2025 is our long-term focus. What we did this year to kind of give us some focus in that is we looked at 3 areas in which we always feel like we can get in the most traction. And obviously we want to look at PLCs in continuing to develop an effective, highly functioning PLC. Obviously with the focus on MTSS and continuing to think about MTSS moving beyond MTSS as an add-on, moving beyond MTSS as just a red folder or just something that we do. We've talked a lot with our experienced teachers about how we've evolved from A-Team to RTI to MTSS, and really taking a look at this as a systemic way of doing business for the whole child and not just for academics. And then developing strategies for our underperforming subgroups, our blacks and students with disabilities, which again, as we mentioned, are our smallest subgroups. So one of the ways we kicked that off this year is we developed portraits of a sixth grader. We modeled this on our JCPS portrait of a graduate. And so we created, in vertical teams this year, portraits of a sixth grader. What we wanted our students to have academically, what we wanted them to have social and emotionally, and what we wanted to have in soft skills to help our students grow from there. And these are just some examples of what our vertical teams came up with. And so this helps us be grounded in a lot of our school improvement processes and in our PLC discussions. So our wildly important goals, our areas of focus. We like to say that if you don't know the goals, you're not working the goals. So we like to keep our goals simple so that if you were to walk through our school, and I hope when you come to visit us in 2 weeks, that if you walk through our school and you ask any of our teachers, what's your academic achievement goal, they should be able to tell you, data-informed instruction. You know, we don't believe in a lot of flowery rhetoric as it comes to that. What are we doing for academic achievement? Data-informed instruction. Instructional practice, the differentiated and research-based instruction. And for whole child, continuing to address social and emotional needs. This is actually something we did pretty well, and we feel like we did pretty well last year. It was a focus of ours last year, and we need to maintain that and keeping that going forward. So, looking at our primary goals, by June 2020, we want to use data-informed instructional planning. We will achieve that 55 proficiency as measured by EOG testing. In other words, we're going to get out of the D, back to the C. That is our goal for this year. And as a result of using our MTSS tiered instructional model, we're going to use formative data from standards-based common assessments to individualize instruction and look at 15% increase in proficiency on grade level standards. If we're teaching the standards, the test scores are going to come. We've got a number of action steps that go along with this. We have dedicated data and planning days in which we use funding to pay for our teachers to plan vertically, to plan curricularly, so that they have the opportunity to develop these plans together, not only as a grade level, but also across grade levels, to continue to develop in knowledge of standards-based learning across grade levels. We've really focused on aligning the core instruction. You know, I think the thing that MTSS emphasis has really shown us is that how much we had moved away from core instruction and kind of chasing rabbits sometimes, that we needed to get back to the core instruction. So every week we want to bring that back. What are we doing in the core? How are we serving students through the core? And then from there, moving out to where we need to be. Our onboarding of MTSS, of course, is ongoing. And as we just talked about, it's a transition to a systemic process and not an add-on or intervention, not a red folder, not an add-on, not something you do instead of. It's something you do as a part of. We focus on our subgroup performance as a regular part of PLCs, and not just our underperforming subgroups, but again, what are we doing looking at all of our subgroups? Because while we met growth for all of our subgroups except Hispanic, it doesn't take much to slide backwards or to improve forwards. So we want to make sure that we are talking about subgroups. What are we doing to reach the unique needs of our learners? And of course, our targeted interventions in tutoring. We do use funding for target tutors. And one of the things that we are really pushing for, and we'll talk more about this in the next step too, is that we're not just targeting pull-out instruction, but we're doing more inclusion and push-in. And the idea is that our students, particularly with these new curricula, need to be in the classroom in front of teachers. So we're adopting and adapting some of our strategies in how we're doing our targeted interventions in tutoring. For instructional practice, by June 2020, teachers are going to target specific skills with differentiated research-based activities so that all subgroups show a 15% growth. For some of our subgroups, that's a pretty big gain. For some of our subgroups, it's not. Some of our subgroups, it's really where we need to be. The other thing that we're doing that we're really, really proud of is that we are using the JCPS instructional model as a guide. So we rolled out the new instructional model this year. We're reflecting on successful instructional practices, again, with that goal of individual skill mastery. And the idea with that is focusing on the instructional model, we are focusing on the implementation and reflection steps. We feel confident in our teachers as instructional experts in the classroom. We have a new ELA curriculum that is out there for our teachers to use, and the buy-in on that has been fantastic. What we want to do now is when we start talking about diving into this development and diving into this analysis, we have got to look at the implementation and reflection steps. How are you putting it into place? What are you gaining out of it? And spending less time in the planning. We trust you to plan. What we want to help you do is adjust what you're doing with the planning. What are you doing with what you see in there? Of course, the implementation of the HMH curriculum. Again, an absolutely fantastic thing. Thank you so much. Thank you to this board. I know it was quite a commitment. But again, this is my 8th year in the seat, and this is the first time that we've had a ELA curriculum. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I think developing that dynamic, that focus of being able to move and develop that terminology and develop that vocabulary and those academic skills that translate from kindergarten to first and first to second help us with our goal of trying to break down some of those vertical silos that we have. And that ties right into our increased focus on vertical planning and collaboration, finding every opportunity that we can to get teachers out of their grade levels and planning across grade levels, planning across curricula. And that way, we've got a better idea of what's going on with the whole child. We're implementing teamed and flexible reading instruction among our teachers. So now, just like last year, we saw that math was an area of concern. We took some great steps towards math. This year, we're looking at across teachers and across grade levels, particularly in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We have it set up so that in the block system, teachers can shift students across classrooms. And the idea is that we can meet students where they are and do the things that they need to do regardless of whose classroom they're in. We provide students with the best possible instruction with whatever they need to get there. And then lastly, as we talked about before with our targeted instruction, with our target tutors, we're doing the same thing with our SWDs. When I came 2 years ago, I let the EC teachers talk me into doing going from a more inclusive model to a more primarily pull-out model, and the numbers don't show it. The numbers don't support it. So this year, we are implementing a hybrid model so that we are pushing in whenever we need to, and then we are serving those students that have pull-out needs in the smallest groups possible. Because then that way, when we were doing inclusion and we had 8, 9 kids in an inclusion setting, you're not getting any benefits out of an inclusion setting if you're going to 8 or 9 kids. So we have now changed our schedules. Again, thank you to Mr. Vetrano and his team for giving us an extra resource teacher, and that has really helped us to facilitate that action. And then lastly, for whole child, we're actually increasing what we're doing by using our SEL screeners to connect SEL needs 3 times per year. Last year we only did 2. And we want to use this information to determine the interventions and measure impact on self-management. So again, there was a lot of satisfaction in kids being happy with where we were. Now we want to focus on those things that kids feel like they need. And then we also want to access other things that are available for us out there and provide that relevant programs for professional development, not only for our staff, but for our parents, and bring in for what we need for our kids as well. Again, this is an area where we feel like we did pretty well, and so we want to make sure that we're maintaining here. So we will utilize the Panorama Survey platform. That's going to roll out in about 2 weeks. We have implemented the Sanford Harmony SEL curriculum. That has been fantastic. We went to morning meetings last year. The Sanford Harmony has rolled right in with that. It has been fantastic. The way we have been able to manage student conflict has been much, much improved as a result of the morning meetings, as well as Sanford Harmony. And then last year, we really spent a lot of time on learner profiles to serve both academic and SEL needs. So we talked a lot about learner profiles and helping us know how our students learn. But we really wanted to get into what are the SEL needs that are coming through on the learner profiles. In other words, not just how our students learn, are they visual, are they kinetic, but how do they respond to these situations? And so we're really excited about that as that's gone. So as it relates to needed supports, ongoing professional development and support of the new HMH curriculum at the district level. And of course, again, thank you to the Curriculum Instruction Shop for putting that together for this Friday. That's a fabulous, great start for us. Ongoing professional development and support of MTSS onboarding from our district coach. We're very fortunate to have back our TLC from last year as our district MTSS AIG coach or advanced learning coach. If I may be very blunt here to you all, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, while I have been here 3 years, there has been a lot of turnover underneath. We've had 3 assistant principals in 3 years. We've had 2 TLCs in 3 years. And so needing that support and building that level of trust as it relates to curricular pieces is very, very important. And then, of course, Christy and her shop are always fantastic with data analysis. You know, one of the first things that I did when we got our math scores and started looking at it, I immediately run to Christy and say, help, show me this. Let's go through this. And so as we, you know, that data is still relatively new. As we go through that, I know that we can count on her assistance for that. So I would just end our presentation with this, is that, you know, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. And so we're really looking forward to the opportunity to tweak our system to improve the results that we're getting. I feel like we're on a fantastic upward trajectory, and that once we continue the growth that we've been showing and we match that with the growth that we know we can achieve, we'll be back to where we need to be as it relates to that.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Any questions for him at this
I
time?
just got one, Dr. Kennedy. You know, commend you and your staff on the overall math growth and exceeding that, and the EVOS growth. So if you basically, you know, in the corporate world and sales, I'll go back to my management of, okay, what worked well this month for you to gain this business? So in the education world of where you're at, what worked well from increasing those math scores and those subgroups that you're going to translate over to get to that C, if you had to sum it up in a couple of sentences?
Yes, sir. Well, what we were able to do last year in 5th grade, which really got a lot of that traction, was we were able to flex group our math students in 5th grade. That's where we really got a lot of rubber meeting the road. We were able to take 2 teachers, flex group that 5th grade math. Unfortunately, due to staffing situations, we're not able to do that this year. However, that same teacher is still in place, and so she's going to take a lot of the skills that she brought from there in doing that. However, we are taking that same model and then moving it forward into reading, where we see that part is going on.
So it's interesting that you talk about flex groups because as an educator, we all know that students need to be where they're going to learn the most, right? And where they can grow. And the fact that that worked so successfully for you last year and that you're moving it over into ELA, you can only assume that the growth is going to take place there as well. One of the things that I really like about your plan, though, is that you are specific at what percentage you want to be at the end of the school year. And Todd and I both know in sales, you have to have that numerical goal to reach. And sometimes as educators, we forget that. We just want growth, right? But if you have a planned target of what you're shooting for, that's really, really a great way to start. Third, I just want to talk about the portrait of a sixth grader. I've seen this movement from a lot of elementary schools in Johnston County over the last 3 or 4 years where the teachers at grade levels are actually saying, what is the portrait of a graduate of kindergarten? What should they be doing? And those kindergarten teachers are meeting with the first grade teachers, and the first grade teachers say, what does the portrait of a graduate of a first grade looks like? And they carry it through their entire school. So I love that this movement's going, that you guys are talking and that you're looking at what is expected from this kindergartner this year. What are they supposed to be able to do when they leave our school and go on to middle school, sixth grade? So that's another great target, so kudos.
And Mr. Sutton, I want to make sure I give a shout out that we were part of the Freckle Pilot last year. Our teachers love it, and we went back and purchased on our own this year so that we have that math resource as well.
Question. So how are we going to maintain the fifth grade scores?
So, I'm glad you brought that up. So what we're now doing is that we have now grouped the math and science block in fifth grade, and the science teacher is a former math teacher on the grade level. So we have actually come up with a scenario where if we have a situation where, and in fact, they have drafted a plan, I've not yet signed off on it, where they're actually going to go to AB days so that they're maximizing that time, and then students will be able to spend more time in math to dive deeper into those subjects. And yet, at the same time, we're also integrating a lot of our literacy into our science, so that we're making sure we're doing content literacy there as well. So, but yes, that is the plan, is that we are going to flex time, that math time as well. So even though there won't be a second teacher to flex out to necessarily, because we're on that AB science schedule, the other teacher is a math teacher. And so she has the opportunity to serve students in that role.
So we're pretty much teaching bell to bell.
Absolutely.
How many teachers are you short?
Well, I will tell you that, our friends in Raleigh have really pushed class sizes in K-3, and they are not equivocating, or not equivalent, providing those teachers in 4 or 5. So when I first came to Corinth, we had 11 4 or 5 teachers. We now have 8, but we have 45 or 50 more 4th and 5th graders than when I came. But our class sizes in K-3 are right where they need to be. And I'm a big believer, too, in you build an elementary school from the bottom up. I mean, we can pour all the resources we want to in 3-5, but if we're not building those foundations at K-2, it really doesn't matter what we're doing at 3-5. All we're doing then is we're plugging leaks in the boat at that point. So while it's a challenge, while our class sizes have gotten rather large, last year they were very large in 5th grade, this year they're very large in 4th grade, the stronger the skills are when they come up to 3rd grade and when they come up to 4th grade, the better it's going to be.
Right, so with that being said, that in education, and this is probably just too much information, but K-2, they're learning to read, 3-5, they're reading to learn, and that transition between 2 and 3 really takes place, and that's why that foundation's so critical.
Absolutely.
I love the vertical, working together to, I can't even imagine what great things will come from that. Are your 5th grade teachers getting to work with sixth grade
the next
teachers
step.
at the next school,
That's the
level
next
school.
step. So, as some of you know, I spent a long time in high school. I spent 16 years in high school, 21 years in high school as a teacher and then as an administrator. And most of that time was spent in ninth grade. And actually, my doctoral dissertation was about ninth grade transition. The toughest transition any student goes through is 8th to ninth grade. The second toughest transition is 5th to 6th. And so one of the things that we've been trying to do is to start equipping those students with what they need to be successful. That's why we're talking about portraits of a sixth grader. But that is the next step, and we're absolutely looking forward to working with the middle school on that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of you. Is Ms. Stevenson in? Five-minute break. 5-minute break.
Are you sure? Okay. All right. So next up, we have Miss Paige Barnes, and I will let her introduce her team. But Wes Clayton.
Wait on me, go ahead.
I'll wait for you, Dr. Cosby. So, good evening. I'm Paige Barnes. I'm the principal at West Clayton, and to my left, I have Sarah Willoughby, one of the assistant principals, and to my right, Brayton Linhart, Dr. Brayton Linhart, one of our other assistant principals. And this is the first year the three of us have had the opportunity to work together. Sarah was part of the team last year, and then we got the opportunity to work with Dr. Linhart this year. But I wanted to start off with, and you can see on the screens, the state of the school for West Clayton Elementary. And on the left, I've got the glows, and then on the right, the grows. Our glows this year, or this past year, have been that we grew 10 points in our fourth grade reading and grew 13.4 points in our fourth grade math. We still are not quite where we want to be in those two areas, but feel that that growth is tremendous with especially one grade level. We grew 9.8 points in our growth composite, not to be confused with that being our growth composite. We went from 50.1% to 59.9% of students meeting growth. We went from a negative 9.9 growth index to a negative 4.01 growth index. So we still aren't within that negative 2 to positive 2, but we're much closer than we were the year before that. Yes. We actually met growth in reading this year as a whole school. That was the only area where we met growth, but we did meet growth in reading. And then for our subgroup data, our black subgroup went from 36 to 41 for the school performance grade, and our students with disabilities went from 25 to 29 for the school performance grade. And so we were very excited about those two subgroups showing growth. In terms of grows, overall, our math proficiency did go down 2.1 points to 48.6%, despite the fact that fourth grade made so much math growth. Our EL progress actually went down 18.1 points to 34.4%. And then we also had student self-management at 66%, which we didn't feel like was high enough. And when we dove deeper into the data, we found that 37% feel that they can remain calm even when somebody's bothering them or saying mean things. And so we felt that was an area we needed to work on to help them remain calm. Our staff, for their perception data, only 18% felt that their colleagues were positive, and only 21% felt that they had a positive work environment. And so those are two areas that really hit me hard. So we definitely wanted to include those in places where we wanted to grow. In terms of our subgroup data, our English language learners, our English language students, their proficiency did go from 38 to 34 for the student performance grade. So again, we talked about the EL progress going down, and I think that is directly affecting the school performance grade. And then our Hispanic proficiency went from 43 to 42. Our goals for this year, let me see if I can make that move. Our goals for this year are that by June 2020, students will improve the ability to self-manage from 66% to 75%, as evidenced by the Panorama Survey. We also want the performance composite to grow from 50.4% proficient to 65% proficient. And in order to do that, we'll improve reading proficiency from 46.8% to 60%, math proficiency 48.6% to 55%, and science proficiency 65% to 80%. Also, by June 2020, our English language learners and students with disabilities will show growth in proficiency in reading and math. English language learners will improve from 6.9% proficient in both reading and math to at least 10% proficient, and students with disabilities will improve from 10.4% proficient in reading to no less than 15% proficient, and will improve from 6% proficient in math to no less than 10% proficient. So we are moving in the right direction in most areas, but we would love to reach these goals and exceed these goals. The infographic that you see is what we provided for our teachers this year to try to keep what was on their plate, and things that weren't on their plate off of their plate. And so you can see that our annual plan for this year is to work on strengthening PLCs, improving our MTSS implementation, and our school-wide expectations. In order to strengthen PLCs, we will utilize the PLC rubric. We'll do walkthroughs, informal from administration and from colleagues. We've got 2 book studies. One is the 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, and the other is Better Than Carrots or Sticks, a restorative approach to discipline. And then professional development. And you can see where our focus shifts down to curriculum and MTSS. We are fortunate to be a part of the innovation project with Kellogg Foundation and the Friday Institute. And so we're extremely excited to have a design team working with them to improve the mission and the vision and the processes of the school. And then we also have a team of teachers that are working with ASCD for direct targeted strategies for our subgroups. And so we're excited to have those 2 pieces, along with the ELA curriculum that we've gotten this year that we're super excited about, and then using our math scope and sequence and our ELA rubric as well. For MTSS, we're working with our school psychologist and our MTSS and advanced learning coach that we have this year to make sure that we're following through with what's in the handbook, that we're looking at those thresholds and making sure that the teachers know when students need that additional support and where to find that additional support, and then making sure that we're tracking the data appropriately. With school-wide expectations, we have a new matrix of expectations that's hanging throughout the school, not only for students, but also for staff, to help the staff remember what's expected of them when they're in the hallways or in the cafeteria or in the classroom. We also have a flow chart of possible consequences, and we have posters that some teachers actually came up with that have students show their West best. And so it has them wondering and asking questions and being enthusiastic about talking with others, speaking with confidence, and tracking the speaker. And so we want to instill some of those habits, not at a punitive level because they're just good things on top of their good behavior and their good choices. And then obviously the book study about the restorative approaches. For social emotional learning, we have house meetings, which I'll explain in just a minute. And then we are also utilizing the Sanford Harmony guidance lessons, and our ELA curriculum, the Into Reading, has that embedded as well. And so we're excited to be able to incorporate that in our everyday English language arts. So I mentioned the house system, and Ms. Grant has had the opportunity to see pieces of it. Yes, she is Modesto. She is in the red house that is represented by a Mustang and stands for humility. But we have done research. We had a group of teachers last year, actually, in January, that visited Moore Magnet Elementary in Winston-Salem, and they fell in love with the house system. And they got a group of teachers together that said, you know, something's got to give with the school climate because everybody's working hard, everybody's doing what's best for kids, but they still are not enjoying being at school each day. And we know that the kids aren't going to learn if they don't enjoy it, and the teachers are not going to do as good a job if they're not enjoying it. And so they jumped face first, really, into the house system. And they started planning, started researching. They went on another visit to a school. We obviously looked at the Ron Clark Academy. We didn't have the opportunity to visit, but we did do some research there and participate in some webinars to get some ideas. But we have homogeneous kindergarten classes. So when they come to us, they all belong to the same house in kindergarten. And then 1st through 5th grade are heterogeneous. So you may have somebody from all 6 houses in your classroom. And we did that to help build that community in such a large elementary school. Our house rallies have been the most fun, and they take 25 minutes on a Friday morning to get the whole school together in the gym and to celebrate each other. We start with excitement, and I'll show you some pictures in a minute, but we start off dancing and setting the tone for the morning, and then the entire school participates in the moment of silence and the pledge, which is actually quite emotional. We celebrate birthdays. We introduce new students and welcome them into the school. This past week, we had a new student named Kevin, and he was the only one this past week, and everybody got to say hello to Kevin, which he was really excited about. We have Enhancement Awards. So this past week, again, we gave out the Heart Award for our guidance classes, and then our PE teacher gave one class the Silver Sneakers that they get to hang outside their classroom. We have Cafeteria and Custodian Awards so that they can help keep their area clean. We did also recognize our Staff of the Month this past week, and so the kids got to be a part of that celebration for a classified staff member and a certified staff member. And then each Friday, teachers have the opportunity to nominate students to represent their house, and we draw one student from each house, and they get to come up on the stage and spin the wheel and get house points for their house. And the house points are a competition throughout the school, kind of like Harry Potter too. They can earn those either at the rallies or through Class Dojo. And so we do use Class Dojo and dump all the points in there on Thursday afternoons. And during the rally, we announce who's in 6th place and then who's in 5th place and all the way to 1st, and they get super excited. And then the kids that are nominated do have the opportunity to unlock a special doghouse that has prizes in it. Only one person gets the key, but they don't know who that is until they open up their box. But when we've actually talked about the fact that we were worried some of the kids would be upset that not all of them were getting a prize, but they have been so wonderful to cheer each other on and to say, great job, maybe next time. And so we can see that the positivity is definitely taking root. They also get to play with the three of us for 30 minutes in a room that we have designated with a foosball machine and a ping pong table and air hockey and Just Dance, Legos. And so they get 30 minutes on Friday afternoon, just those 6 kids and the administrators, to really get to know us, let us get to know them, and to have a little fun for making good choices. I was trying to look and see what else. All staff are involved, and we did have Miss Grant come, and we'd love for you guys to visit on a Friday, and we'll sort you into a house also so that you know where you belong. But we do have the houses focused on traits that we want the students to have when they leave West Clayton. So Miss Grant's is Modesto, hers is humility. Miss Willoughby's is Sisu, they are resilience, and they're the owls. Haruma is empathy, they're the elephants. My house is fauna, we're the sea turtles for perseverance. Dr. Linhart is Hashima for respect, they're the lions, and then we have the bees that are Athene for accountability. And so we're helping the students learn about the different traits that we want them to take with them. And I've got tons of data. I tried to overplan versus underplanning, but we're hoping that that will improve our discipline, which we've seen a great trend in our discipline to lower the number of offenders and repeat offenders. We actually dropped our repeat offenders without the house system from 22% to 2% of the population. And we dropped our disruptive behavior from 41% to 25%. But our inappropriate language and disrespect did go up a little bit, well, quite a bit, from 7% to 44%. So, yes. They're not being disruptive with it, just disrespectful. But one of the things that the house rallies actually allow us to do, and we did it this past week, is talk with all of them at one time. And so this past week we introduced the grab-and-go breakfast and explained to them what the expectations were for the grab-and-go breakfast. And it really is just very powerful to have the whole school there hearing the same message and seeing it. The staff are there, they hear the same message as the students. And so we hope to continue to tack those things into the meetings so that we can help students continue to learn and do what they're supposed to. And then this coming Friday, we actually have a house meeting where the houses will meet individually and learn more about their trait and learn more about what that looks like. And so we'll have different groups of students from kindergarten through 5th grade all around the school learning about perseverance and empathy and resilience. The last thing I wanted to mention about that is one of the things on top of climate, self-management for students and discipline is our attendance. We had 6,359 total absences last year and 3,383 tardies and 1,111 early checkouts. And that's something that we know is hurting our scores because we can't teach the students if they aren't there. And I've not pulled the numbers yet, but I've already heard students say they don't want to be late on Fridays because they'll miss the rallies. So we're getting there, and hope that attendance data will show us that as well. These are a couple of the pictures, just so you can see. This is over a couple of different rallies. You can see our SRO is participating with us and getting the students pumped up with the Cupid Shuffle. And then we have a teacher earning the silver sneakers in the middle. On the top right, that's our first group of students that were nominated and were chosen to represent their houses, and so that's the wheel they get to spin. The middle picture on the bottom is them actually spinning the wheel. The bottom right picture is where that's the little doghouse that they open and get a prize out of it. And then on the left, the bottom left, is where you can see a teacher standing up there dressed as an elephant, supporting our new student, Kevin, as he chooses which house he's going to be part of. And you can see on some of the kids at the back of their heads, but they're all excited and want him to be a part of their house. And so it's really neat to hear the kids cheer him on and accept them into his house when they get there. So the last thing I have is support requested, and I think the main things, and we've thought about this over and over again, but really having a good core support resource for math. We did use Freckle last year, but because of our budgeting and what we use our 069 and 024 money on for Read to Achieve, we weren't able to keep that as a school. And so it'd be nice to have that, as well as an intervention resource for math for K2. We'll do the math for 3-5, but it'd be nice to have something for the K2, because if they don't get that base understanding, then the 3-5 is not going to come quite as easily. Technology, I know that's a big thing with everybody, because our tests are online now, our interventions are online, students are trying to do blended learning, and we have about half of our classes with Chromebooks in grades 3 through 5, and then each class only has about 6 in K2. And so allowing them the opportunity to really dig into that technology would be wonderful. I think it's on the plans, but reviewing the core math curriculum and training for K5 and reviewing the core phonics curriculum and training for K3 would be wonderful, because I think the needs of the students have changed over time, and it'd be nice to see if there might be something else out there that can really help us improve those math scores especially, but also the early phonics. So, any questions?
No, I just want to applaud you for taking on the house system. I taught at a school where I was a head of a house at the middle school level. So this is them in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They actually start taking ownership for their peers and their behavior, and they will quickly put another student in line if they are breaking a rule, so they can ensure that they get their house points. And that whole system and the research behind it is just so phenomenal. So that's awesome.
It has been, we were hoping it would work, and we knew that it would, but the amount of time that we put into it, there's always that little bit of fear.
Yeah, there's a lot of time
But it
involved.
has taken off a lot better than we could ever have imagined.
And I do have one question. Do they stay in their house?
Yes, they stay
All
in
the
their
way through
house.
the end of
Once
5th
they
grade.
are put in it in kindergarten, then they'll stay there the rest of their time at West Clayton.
So awesome.
And we do have fights at home sometimes with kids that aren't in the
Well,
same house. But
not everybody can be a Slytherin or a Ravenclaw, right? So,
Can you back this presentation up to I think it's the glows and grows?
right there.
It seems like you have a ton of positive things going. It's very energetic. What I wanted to ask was with the low ranking percentages on the positive colleagues and the positive work environment, without being specific, were you able to find a centralized cause for everything? I mean, among your teachers, not being specific, not wanting to know what it is, but were you able to identify something that could maybe increase that percentage of buy-in?
Yes, we actually identified a couple of things, and one was wanting to feel more ownership, which is where the house system came out of, and wanting to do something big, having big change versus just little small changes.
And the growth and everything wasn't available at the time, was it? Or was it available whenever you got that feedback from the teachers?
For the growth on the left-hand side,
Yes.
No, they had not seen the math growth yet. They had seen the reading, but they had not seen the math yet.
Yeah. Success cures everything in most cases,
Yes.
so maybe we can
Yes.
get that percentage to grow up.
Hopefully, our changes to the attendance policy will help your attendance situation as well.
That would be wonderful. Yes.
Dr. Lenhart, I'm trying to imagine what kind of dance that you do.
I turned into a photographer, actually.
Smart guy, I'll put a camera in my hand too.
My rhythm is not quite there yet. Miss,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes.
Y'all did a great job, thank
yeah,
you.
Miss Barnes, I
Appreciate it.
just got two things. One is I commend you on, finding out that, hey, you may have some issues and you want a positive school and not just shoving it to the side and say, this is my way. It's really diving in and saying, how can we all build a team here and not just one or three? It's everybody. So I commend you on that and taking those steps, because it's, I can't wait. I'm going to be out of town Friday, but I'll be back next Friday, and I love to come find out, make sure I'm not in Teresa's house. Well, I'm just kidding, Teresa. But, but what have you found to be associated with the EL 18% decrease? Is it anything that you've really pinpointed that created that that drop?
Yes, unfortunately, that we have a teacher and a half for ESL, and because most of our children that need ESL services are K through 2, because they're just coming in and really need that support, our full-time teacher works with those students, and she's been a teacher in the district for quite a while, and she's phenomenal with the kids. We also had a half-time person that we shared with the high school that was coming over, and she really just didn't care to work with elementary students and wasn't there a good portion of the time, and that's been fixed. So we are already on an upswing because we have a great half-time ESL teacher that is there for the kids, loves working in small groups, loves working with the other ESL teacher, and has already become part of the community. Yep. Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
We'll need a lot of it.
Up next, we have TJ Parrish, and he can introduce his team for Micro Elementary.
Mr. Parrish, glad to have you tonight. Mr. Pittman, it's good to have you tonight too, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Wooten, Dr. Cosby, and members of the board. It is an honor to be with you tonight to share our school improvement plan for Micro Elementary for the 2019-2020 school year. It is an honor to serve at Micro Elementary. I would like to recognize our assistant principal, Angel Shepard. Ms. Shepard is an integral part of what we do on a daily basis. She doesn't like taking credit, but we appreciate what she does. We also have our school improvement co-chairs this evening, Ms. Ashley Anderson and Mrs. Laura Warren. Thank you guys for being in attendance. And also, I'd like to acknowledge our Micro Advisory Council Chairman, Mr. Art Pittman. Thank you for being here, Mr. Pittman, and as always, supporting our school. I guess I need to do this too, huh? All right. So 2019-2020 is the 4th year of Micro Elementary, and we are continuing to establish our identity as a school and shape a positive school culture. Partnering with the community is a big part of what we do at Micro. For the last 2 years, we have hosted an annual back-to-school event that has been both embraced and sponsored by our local community. At this event, we're able to offer free haircuts, book bags, school supplies, and new clothing outfits for our students. We partner with the Hennet Outreach Center for our Backpack Buddies program. We send home approximately 80 food bags each week with different families. Our Spider Buddies is the volunteer network that we have developed within our local community. Community members who are level 2 volunteers come to school regularly to mentor students, and we have about 25 parents and community members who serve in this capacity, and we are in the process of expanding this initiative. Our monthly character assemblies provide an opportunity for us to take advantage of our small size. Our entire school can fit in our gym at once, and we can discuss character education, we have student performances, and we celebrate our students. These are truly special events. We offer student clubs that are based on student interests. We continue to be amazed at the enthusiasm in which students approach this opportunity as they're being a part of, they're getting to go where their interest lies. A small team of educators had the opportunity to participate in the True School Fellowship. Our team created a literacy blueprint that won $750 in funding from True School. We value reading at Micro Elementary. We believe students need to see that reading is connected in every subject in school. Our students are read to daily. We added to the classrooms in each classroom, including art, music, and PE. We want our students to see that reading is everywhere. We are also proud to have added a preschool class at Micro Elementary. We strongly believe in the importance of early learning interventions. This slide contains celebrations that can be directly tied to data. As a school, we met overall growth for the second consecutive year. We were also pleased with our growth index of 3.8 percentage points in reading. We value all student subgroups and are especially proud that our Hispanic and white subgroups met their annual proficiency goal in reading. We were also pleased to see that English language students surpassed their reading acquisition goals by 14 percentage points. There are clear opportunities for improvement at Micro Elementary, and luckily we are equipped with a great team of folks to make strides in these areas. Economically disadvantaged students represent the largest subgroup at our school. Improving the achievement of these students would have a huge impact on our overall school performance data. Historically, math proficiency has been lower than our reading proficiency. Over the last 3 years, math proficiency has averaged 4% lower than our reading proficiency, and we'd like to see that change. 5th grade science proficiency in the past has been a relative strength for Micro Elementary. Last school year, our lone science teacher had a medical leave of absence, and we believe this was influential heavily in our significant decrease. We envision these numbers improving. Through the Panorama Student Survey, we have also been able to target a specific strand of social and emotional learning goals that we plan to address as a school. When faced with an adverse situation, 30% of our students indicated they had the ability to remain calm. 48% of students cited that they were able to ignore distractions, and 48% of our students are confident in their abilities to keep their temper under control. All 3 of these responses are below the district average, and we believe that if we are able to help our students improve in these areas, it will positively impact all of their future endeavors. Our first school improvement goal is to improve reading and math proficiency by approximately 4% in each subject. We are pleased with the fact that our school has met expected growth overall for the last 2 years, but we aim to improve our proficiency. Our second goal, we aim for students to increase their capacity in self-management. This goal is tied directly to the needs of our students. We feel that this goal will better prepare them for middle school and life. We have also set goals in reading, science, and math that are directly tied to the academic achievement of our economically disadvantaged subgroup of students. As I stated earlier, this is the largest subgroup of students in our school, and the potential of its impact is significant. We would like to thank the board for providing our students and teachers with the new reading curriculum. We will strive to support our teachers in the implementation of this much-needed resource this school year. At Micro Elementary, we have researched the impact that is associated with students who read for enjoyment. Research has shown that enjoyment of reading has a greater impact on a child's educational achievement than their parents' social economic status. We believe that if you can instill a love of reading within students, their potential academic outcomes vastly improve. We will continue to build excitement around reading by hosting authors, reading aloud to our students, and by planning monthly reading events such as buddy reading, which pairs younger grades and older grades to read together. We have recently formed a data-based problem-solving committee. This committee will meet twice a month to provide peer support to fellow teachers, to identify research-based strategies to help our at-risk students. And additional strategies for increasing our student achievement are that we have begun the process of refocusing and recommitting to professional learning communities. Our school improvement team developed a creative school schedule that allows for weekly extended planning time without pulling instructional staff away from their normal duties. Each team has created norms and will use common assessment data to inform and adapt their instruction. Each PLC will set quarterly SMART goals that are similar to our school improvement goals that encompass big picture learning goals for their students to accomplish. First quarter goals have already been set by our grade level teams. We have also prioritized communication with our teams and have created structures for all of the different support teachers to communicate with one another. We are excited to embark on a school-wide book study of a book titled Disrupting Poverty, and we will discuss this book as a staff at staff meetings and implement at least 2 strategies school-wide. To address our students' SEL needs, we have formed a partnership with Alliance Health. Alliance has already provided our staff with training regarding adverse childhood experiences, and we have additional dates already planned for them to work with our staff in the future. We have also partnered with Alliance for our Micro Elementary Parent Academy that we are offering parents this school year. Our Parent Academy will be held at night, childcare will be provided, and we will offer the incentive of home reading resources to parents who attend all of the sessions. Session topics will span from topics such as bullying to how to support your child at home with homework. A subcommittee of our school improvement team will meet monthly to monitor data when it comes to SEL and lead our processes of implementing support strategies. To stay informed when it comes to the needs of our students, we have opted in to the regular Panorama Survey opportunities for both teachers and students. These are short, informative surveys that will inform our practices. We will also conduct SEL screeners 3 times per year to provide our leadership team additional data when it comes to making decisions regarding social emotional learning. Our school improvement team created a schedule that included time for each class to conduct a daily morning meeting. These meetings consist of a classroom greeting, a time for students to share, a group activity, and an opportunity for teachers to share a morning message of the day. Each classroom at Micro is now equipped with a teacher-designed calming corner. This is so students know that there's a safe place in each classroom for them to calm down. The last SEL strategy that I would like to share is our Good News Call of the Day program. Each day, a different staff member gets to recognize a Micro student who has made a positive contribution to our school. The student is celebrated over the intercom. During morning announcements, we call their parents to share the good news, and we post the good news to social media. We want our community to associate Micro with good news. They're one and the same. Micro, good news. Micro Elementary this year has partnered with Dr. Lang and the preschool department in adding a preschool class this year. We believe that offering preschool opportunities to students is a sound, research-based strategy that can show long-term results. We would appreciate any support the board could offer by providing even more of our future Black widows' early educational experiences.
So TJ, the very first meeting I had with you, we talked about your preschool
Yes, ma'am.
idea. And I don't know if I just want to share this with the rest of the board members, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but you had said to me, your words were, I feel like if I can catch them early, they'll be ready for kindergarten, because so many of our kids come to us and they don't have those life experiences of books. So, good job.
Thank you. And that's absolutely, we want to offer preschool to all of our students because we have a great kindergarten staff, and they spend a lot of their time getting them where they need to be when they walk in the door. So we would like them to be more prepared so we can get them so by the time they go to first grade, they're ready to read, because that's where the real challenge in elementary lies, is in first grade, and making them leave first grade as accomplished readers.
Can you go to goal 2?
Yes, sir.
You know, you mentioned a community involvement that's very well known. We know that micro is a very tight-knit community with a lot of people who do a lot for that community. And those percentages seem high to me, and it just doesn't make sense. And I know it would be hard to kind of put a correlative property with the percentage you're seeing or you presented and the disciplinary actions you have to take. Do you think, and I know, like I said, quantitatively it'd be difficult to do, but subjectively, how you feel? Do you feel like the disciplinary actions you're having to take is reflective of the controlling the temper at 48%, 30% with the calming down, and the 48% distractions?
Yes, I mean, I do believe that a lot of our discipline data is tied directly to our students' difficulty to remain calm, control their temper, and to ignore distractions. Did that answer your question?
No, just being no. But with those percentages being as high as they are, you would seemingly have an overwhelming amount of disciplinary issues. So what I'm asking is, are you having a lot? Because I wouldn't think so at micro elementary, but based on those percentages, it would appear that that would be high.
We definitely have our students who have a difficult time following classroom expectations, but we have a great staff that works with them. And I would say, if you walk down our halls, you would see a fairly orderly school, and it's a fun school to be at. But I do think that's something. When I was going through the Panorama data, it surprised me as well. But I do think the need is there, and I think some of our students just don't have those coping skills and the problem-solving skills that it takes to do better in those realms.
You have a great community and a very well-ran school, in my opinion. So thank you, Mr. Parrish. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Parrish, first of all, looking at the numbers, I think great things are happening at micro. I believe you grew 40 students this year so far. Is that number right? Am I close to that?
Yes, sir. I think the number I saw, including the pre-K, that was 18. But we went from 333 to 377.
Yeah. So good things are happening at a small school, right?
Yes, sir. We are the small school where big things happen.
So going back to goal 1, if you don't mind, TJ, just looking at this, you were talking about the 4%, increase in 4% on both sides. And as we've talked about earlier tonight, me and Mrs. Zukowski, numbers, you got to have some kind of goal that you can shoot for, because in sales, that's what we always do. And we can hang our hat on those numbers, right, Mr. Pittman? So my question is, how will this increase of 4%, what will that do for the overall grade for the school in your goal 1?
If we make the 4% increase,
I see it now. No, I'm sorry. I got it now. You've got the proficiency, what you're going to. I'm sorry. I answered my own question.
no, but I will add though that we're proud of our growth. We've shown some pretty good growth numbers, but based on the state's 80% proficiency model and 20% improvement or growth model, we've got to really improve our school grade, our school performance. We've got to go to proficiency. We've got some great growth that we can celebrate, but we got to, those aren't necessarily the rules we're playing by. So we've got to address proficiency.
Right. So let me ask you this, because earlier tonight somebody ran this, and you may not have ran it, but be curious to know if it went to a 50-50 proficiency and growth, how would that change the outlook of micro?
I haven't ran it this year, but when I ran it last year, we're a C. And we can ask Ms. Stevenson to run some numbers, but I'll hold our growth numbers up against anybody. Thank you.
So has your parent academy started yet?
No, ma'am. Our first date is in October.
Brilliant concept. I mean, we all say that if kids have parent support at home, it can do wonders for their education and social emotional learning all together. So kudos for that, and I can't wait to see. I hope you have awesome participation, and I just can't even imagine all the great things that can come out of that. So we look forward to hearing all about that, the good things
Yes,
at
ma'am.
Micro as one of those good things. And one of the things that you didn't mention in your Encourage a Love for Reading is your secret society of readers.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just love that. And how many students do you have in your society this year?
Well, that's the reason that I have not included it yet, Ms. Grant, is because I had that effort, and it is on my to-do list, and I need to get started on reorganizing our secret society of readers. And that is it's a small niche group of about 35, 40 kids that for that, we target the kids that read all the time. You know, maybe Johnny, put your book away. It's not time to read. We're doing math. We target those kids, and just to really celebrate them and give them opportunity to get together and talk about books. And that is also a time where we bring in authors and we try to just to build enthusiasm around reading. And so I left it out just because it's on my to-do list.
Well, I love that. Keep it up. Great
Thank you, ma'am.
things.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Parrish, thanks for all you do in micro, leading those students, and Ms. Shepherd and all the leadership team that you brought tonight. It shows you that you got a great community, you got great community leaders helping you, and that's what makes a successful school. We appreciate your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten. Thank you, board.
Ms. Stevenson, welcome back.
Our final presentation for the evening is Selma Middle School. Mr. Stephen Baker will introduce his team.
Mr. Baker, welcome to the boardroom, and we go to the same barber, don't we?
We do, and I think you do a pretty good job. What do you think?
Don't make much money on us.
No?
I don't know, he left some hair on your face. I'm teasing. I'm so teasing you, Mr. Baker.
No, that's quite all right. He did. I don't know if I'm just hoping one day it transfers. I don't know if I'm looking for a comb over. But one way or the other, though. Let me get to the right spot here. I'm really honored to be here tonight with you. Appreciate the opportunity. And just thrilled about the team that we have here tonight and the presentation. I was really worried when I heard it was only 15 minutes, because those of you that have heard me speak before know that it's hard to say hello in 15 minutes for me. So thank you, sir. And I just asked if I could take the time that was on the end here, if we could add to the beginning. But the good Lord in his knowledge said, boom, we're going to put you at the end. And so I've taken liberty to order you supper tonight. It'll be here about 8:30, and I'll pause, and then we'll wrap it up. So my timekeeper for tonight is Ms. Sabo. She's going to keep me on track, relatively speaking. And of course, I will always be quiet when the chairman or superintendent says you're done. I'll just cut off mid-sentence and we'll go home and land the plane. So I want to introduce the team that I have here tonight. I have Ms. Sabo. She's been an assistant principal there. This is her second year there. Mr. Yule is here. This is his third year. And we have our school improvement chair just voted in this year, Ms. Turnbull. And we're very happy to have her here. They'll speak in just a moment. Ms. Pavlock is the other assistant principal that I have. I was just blessed beyond belief to drop down at that school with the people that we have there, the people that we've hired this summer, and the leadership that we have. I think you'll be really proud of the things that they're going to accomplish. Ms. Pavlock is the other AP, and we threatened to fire her even though we don't have the authority to if she showed up tonight because it is her daughter's birthday. And the family had a birthday party, and we knew you would not want her to be here and miss that party as well. So we assured her you would understand and that we would point that out tonight. So that's the only AP that I do not have here tonight. So we're going to start off. One thing before we get going. Sorry about the mic. Is it going to mess anybody up if I wander? Thank you. Rather than put together a new presentation for you, we took the presentation that we used at the beginning of the school year with the faculty and staff, and we tweaked it a little bit for tonight, but overall, I want you to see beyond the goals that we wrote. It's great to write goals, but we work to reach those goals. Pick the mic up. Thank you, sir. I thought I had escaped. I didn't know he was in there. But it's one thing to read the goals. You've read the goals, and so, but what do those goals mean? How do we plan to reach the numbers that we put in there? And so that's what we hope that you see tonight, because you're going to see the here's what, so what, now what. And also, part of our theme this year is opportunities await, take the road less traveled. We were sitting in an interview this summer, and we had to hire, was it 16? 16 individuals, and the year before they hired 13. So we have a lot of new teachers. But one of the things, and by the way, speaking of equity today, our last 4 teacher hires have been people of color. So we're very happy about that. We have people from Colombia, India, across the pond there, and I think he's from England. And so we are really, when you look at the diversity of our staff, and you see right now, and I don't think it has our most recent numbers, because I think you'll see that as a middle school, we're the most diverse. 90% of our students are students of color. And we truly believe and are passionate about making sure we increase the number of teachers that we have so students can see individuals that look like them, who have experiences like them. And so, but we were in an interview, and so I believe it was you, Mr. Yule? Mr. Yule said to one of the applicants, we're a school where our opportunities are greater than our barriers. And so that like struck me right between the eyes, because that's the way, I hadn't even been able to articulate that, but that's exactly the way I felt. And when I talked to teachers there, many of them feel the same way. We have to take what we have to own the grade that we have. We have to own the lack of growth that's there. But we will own that. We do own that, and we have a plan for that. But so instead of saying opportunities await, or instead of saying opportunities are greater than our barriers, we didn't want to put that negativity out there. So we changed that to be take the road less traveled, a little bit of poetry in there. So that is what we view this in a mindset of what a great place to be. There is so much to do. Great kids. If you go there, come just walk around anytime. Don't even warn me. See if you don't see some great kids. From the moment they get off in the morning to the time that they leave, we're school. We have our problems just like everywhere else, but what a great place to be. And that's the way we view it's a blessing to be there. And so that's who we've tried to hire, are people who feel the same way. So I'm well past what my entry was, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to Ms. Sabo. We're going to talk about a couple of positive things in review of last year, and then something that was an area that we really needed to work on for this year based on last year.
Good evening. One area of pride for us at Selma is our Avid program, and that continued to be a strength last year and into this year. Our Avid program has grown not only in numbers, but in the opportunities that are presented to students as well. They took several field trips last year to local universities, East Carolina, North Carolina A&T, NC State as a means of presenting those college opportunities to our students. One other area of focus for us has been growing our Avid students in our advanced courses. One thing that we want to make sure of is that by the time students leave us at Selma Middle School, that we are presenting them with opportunities for high school credit, and we've been able to grow our Avid students in those classes. We really are working with Triple S. I saw a picture up there of their Avid team as we continue to grow in our feeder pattern in our Avid cohort. Students that enter the Avid cohort at Triple S have shown a 100% rate in entry to 2- and 4-year colleges. So we're proud of that statistic as a feeder pattern, and we want to make sure to continue that at Selma Middle. I'm going to pass it to Mr. Yule.
Good evening. Again, I'm Mr. Yule, and I've had the pleasure of serving at Selma Middle School in the capacity of assistant principal, and this is year number 3 for me at Selma Middle School. And one of the successes that I would like to speak about is the dual language program that we have at Selma Middle School. Dual language has really given us the opportunity to work with our other feeder pattern schools and build authentic relationships with them in the work that they're doing. Ms. Rosado and over at Triple S, Mr. Allen, it's really given us the opportunity to give our kids an opportunity that goes past their years that we have them in our school. And dual language has really been a flagship program and something that we look to continue to build in our school. Dual language, as Mr. Baker had stated, also has given us the opportunity to hire staff from all over the country, all over the world rather, to create a population that's more diverse and inclusive for the kids in our building. We've also had conversations with the district about having the opportunity to offer our kids a Spanish credit. When kids are promoted from us in grade 8 on to Triple S in grade 9, they will have the opportunity to go over there with a Spanish credit. And we think that that's a great opportunity, a small way that we can help bridge the achievement gap, a small way that we can help boost graduation rates within our feeder pattern. Dual language is something that's totally awesome, and we would encourage you all just to pop over and see some of the awesome work going on down there with dual language. And I'm going to pass the mic on to Ms. Turnbull, our recently elected chair.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk about one of the opportunities at Selma, which is discipline and behavior. We have found that we really need to work on developing those strong relationships, getting the kids to want to come to school every day, wanting them to stay at school every day, wanting them to be in the classrooms. We know that when there is a discipline distraction in the classroom, no one's learning. I can't teach. The ones who want to learn can't learn. So we are committed to making sure that we address those issues, making sure we are looking for innovative ways to keep kids in the classroom, but minimizing the distractions and the disruptions. So we know that's an area of need, and we're ready for the opportunity to meet that need.
Thank you, three. I appreciate you sharing that. I realized listening to them talk, and they were so articulate that I was a little wound up, so I went and got some coffee. I'll settle down. I'm sure that will work. I'm not going through every slide here. Again, I gave you what we used at the beginning of the year. We tweaked a few things, so you can go peruse it at your own time. But one thing that is very important is it's people, not programs. Sorry. No one was ever saved or helped by a program. It was a person using that program as a tool. And that's fundamental for us in our belief at Selma. A fool with a tool is still a fool, but a teacher who is highly qualified using a program as a tool can do wonderful things with children. And so we want to invest in our teachers first and our program second. We were made to be awesome. We watched the video, Kid President. If you've not seen Kid President, look it up on YouTube. Whenever I get down and life seems to be overwhelming, I look at that young man. He's broken almost every bone in his body, and he's impacted millions of people. If he can do it, surely I can get off the couch, quit feeling sorry for myself, and get to work. So we talked about it. We watched it as a school. We've shown it to each of our classes in our class meetings. And the whole point that I wanted to get at here is we were made to be awesome. And if that's the case, each one of those children were made to be awesome as well. So what does it mean when we say it's easy to be rah-rah, but what does it mean? What does it look like? What does it sound like? We want to make sure that everything at that school, when you walk in, you feel what it means to be awesome. When you hear us speak as adults, you understand what that means. And then what kind of choices, if we take the road less traveled, what does that look like? For instance, if there's a late game and you watch Monday Night Football and your team loses and it's overtime and it got done at 12 o'clock, do you show up to school the next day? Or do you take the day off? So we talked about all of those things. That leads me to a core belief of mine that changed the way that I administrate, and that is every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results it gets. You know, that comes out of the health field, but I have found it to be true with any organization. If you don't like what has happened, adjust your system. It's so easy to blame people. It's easy to blame students. It's easy to blame the community. It's easy to blame, did I say teachers? But you know what? In the end, what I found is when we focus on the system, garbage in, garbage out, the opposite is also true. And so we want to focus on the system and design it because part of our job is to make sure that teachers and students can be successful, and oftentimes that's in the system. And so Bill Parcells says it another way: you are what your record says you are. So we talked about here's what, so what, and now what. So here's what. You have the data in front of you. I know you've read the data, but we received an F school performance grade in our school performance grade. We have a 33. We are 7 points from a D. We're comprehensive support and improvement. We're the only CSI school in Johnston County. We did not meet growth, and we are second year into restart status. So what? Just briefly, teaching is only effective if students are learning. What Mr. Turnbull, I'm so sorry, too much coffee. What Ms. Turnbull was getting at with the discipline, we had some great teaching going on, but the students weren't listening. So therefore, we were not effective. Community and school pride suffers. The state can shut us down unless we show improvement. And being a high-quality school that outperforms student background, it is possible, and we must do it. We're not talking about widgets. We're not talking about how many cars we can get through a production line. We're talking about students and generations to come. An unsuccessful student generationally has a cost, not only to society, but to that family. And so we take what we're doing very seriously. So the shotgun approach to improving anything in your life doesn't really work. That scattered approach where you just hope and pray. And so we want to base everything on sound research. So Marzano What Works in Schools is effective. I've used it before at 2 different schools, 2 good outcomes. And so we continue that. The factors affecting student achievement, as you know, in his meta-analysis, he takes hundreds and hundreds of studies and puts them together. So it's not just his research. And there's many different categories if you start studying school improvement. But in the end, he has school factors, teacher level, and student level. As you know, the teacher has the largest impact on the academic performance and outcomes of students, bar none of anyone. The principal and the leadership team have the responsibility of setting that stage so the teacher can be successful, and we have the largest impact on the system that we talked about. And so, although teacher level gives you the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to student improvement, that school factor, if you ignore it year one, it's going to bite you later on, because no matter how good your teachers are, if the system's not set up to help them be successful, they can't. And so you have the school, teacher, student level. I'm not going to read our school improvement goals to you because you've read them. What you might not have seen in there is our subgroups. If you look at our subgroups, you'll see that we need to work in every subgroup. There's not one subgroup that we don't need to focus on, and we need to use evidence-based strategies in order to reach those students. Let's talk about please tell me that wasn't 15 minutes. Is it 15 already? Oh, 10 and a half. Thank you. Let me think about that one for a sec. All right, school level factors. We're not going to go through each one of these either. You know what PLCs are. We believe they are fundamental and the keystone to improving instruction in school. Multi-classroom leaders. We hope to partner with Public Impact. They have a proposal they're sending to us. But a multi-classroom leader is a teacher who continues to teach. The opportunity culture here is because many people leave the classroom because out of necessity they need to make more money. But there's not, or they want to move up in terms of opportunities to expand their influence and have a larger role. Well, opportunity culture says, you know what, let's create an opportunity in our classrooms, in our buildings, where teachers can be leaders and get paid for that, but they can also still do what they're passionate about, which is teaching. And so we have 4 MCLs, multi-classroom teachers. They teach one, and in this, their strategy also with school improvement grades, you want some quick wins, right? So we are looking for the upper quartile teacher to become an MCL. We have one who came from within our school. We're talking to some others about the opportunities when it next comes, and then we hired 3 other ones. There's 1 per hallway, and there's 6 teachers per hallway, so that is 1 MCL per 6 teachers to help. They teach one class of some of the lowest performers. There's a range there, which reduces the class size in the other teacher's classroom. And then they spend the other time pushing in and helping teachers where they need. You can imagine at a school that's low performing, we have a lot of young teachers. And so they need that additional support and help. And instead of us going in there and giving them a list of resources, we have a teacher every day, if need be, can go teach that class hand over hand and help them with behavior, with pedagogy. And so we are really excited about that possibility. And with Public Impact, when we partner, we hope that what we'll get out of that is a lot of professional development. They have been used in Restart schools from all the way down to Charlotte Mech to other places. And what they're finding is when a school embraces the MCL and the teachers embrace the help, rising tide raises all ships. And so you begin to see the performance and the growth equal out to your highest level teacher. And so we're very excited about that. Follow the curriculum with fidelity. If anybody's heard me speak about curriculum, you know I'm very passionate about that because the day I go to my doctor and they Google what's wrong with me, I'm out of there. And so we have to move beyond Google, Pinterest, Instagram for what we're going to do in the classroom. And curriculum is the gateway to equity and access. You have to have that. If we're both teaching, Mr. Johnston, he may have no bias whatsoever in his mind. He's been teaching for many years, so when he hits the internet and looks for his strategies and his curriculum, and curriculum, when I say that, because I know it's very broad, it's all the materials that you use to teach the standards. We have our state standards, and then you have the curriculum to teach those standards. He comes back with a great lesson. I come back, I've been watching football, I'm a little tired, I jump on Pinterest, I teach the same lesson, but did my students have equal access to that curriculum? Are my students going to perform as well at the end of the year? And so we are dedicated to the curriculum. I appreciate the work of CIA and their work to support us. They have come out. We got a half-day sub for all of our English language arts teachers. They said, look, this is great curriculum, but we are overwhelmed in trying to keep up with it. And so we paid for half-day subs. CIA sent some people over to help train, and we'll continue to support that. For instance, if we have never mind. So I told you I'd get on a soapbox about curriculum. So we're dedicated to doing it with fidelity. Changing goals and effective feedback. Talked about PLCs, data review, you know that. Parent and community involvement. We'll continue the parent and community nights, but one thing that we're excited about is Miss Minnesota's shop and working in conjunction with Miss Stevenson's shop is working with us on academic parent and teacher teams. And so that is a program that it was somebody who was getting their doctorate. They did their dissertation on this. They found out it's really effective, and a company came and bought them. And now she works for the company running her program. And so, but what they find is they're in schools with we have high parent involvement, but we have low parent engagement. And part of that is, if I don't know a lot about education, I'm a principal, and I get some of these reports we send out, and my eyes get large. And, you know, I'm going through, because I have a child in elementary, and then 2 in high and 1 in college. And so I understand when a parent comes and wants to hear and wants to talk to the teacher but isn't sure what to say. What they have found is if you take everybody in your classroom and you meet at the same time and you do it for 75 minutes 3 times a year, all of a sudden, because I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm learning, You're willing to say what I wanted to ask, and all of a sudden we're learning together, and now I feel like I'm in a safe place and I'm asking questions. And they give practical tips to parents in terms of how to help. I took algebra a long time ago. We don't even call it that anymore. So when my high schooler comes home and is doing like Math 3, like I struggled with algebra. That's Math 1, you know? And so parents don't have to worry about that anymore. All they do is come, we give them practical tools, and we meet with everybody for 75 minutes at the same time, and they have activities, and by the second time, the students are leading these conferences. So this Friday is our training. We're partnering with West Smithfield, Selma Elementary, and Miss Milisato set this up and is doing a lot of her department's doing a lot of the legwork. We just get to show up, learn, and then implement. So we're very excited about that. Safe and orderly environment. This is the school level factors continued. Developing a behavior plan in conjunction with the multidisciplinary student development team. I thought that the student development team would be year 2, and then Charity Pate, she's the one, right? Yes. Our school social worker emailed the other day and said, I'd like to sit with you and talk about getting a multidisciplinary team together. Let's talk about how we can help the whole child. And I thought, oh my goodness, that sounds perfect. Looks like we'll do it year 1. Because it's low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, to get a child through school. We can scaffold, we can level, we can stand next to them, we can work with parents, but we want to help the whole child. So when that child goes up to high school, we want them to be a productive citizen once they graduate high school. So graduation is great, but we want to reach the whole child. And so with the development team, we'll be able to look at each child. If they continue to get in trouble, we're going to dig into why and address that. So we're excited about that. The student development liaison, you heard about our discipline concerns. We hired somebody, and all they do all day long is be in the hallway and walk into classes, taking care of all the little things. Last year, the APs spent so much time running around dealing with little things, they couldn't focus on instruction. And so we are still doing discipline when it reaches us, but this level here, we were able to hire a former SRO. He was also a former gang police, and then he retired from that, and then was being a teacher assistant. And I've worked with him in the past. I knew his skills. He understands the resource part of the officer. And we now have kids running up to him. You can walk down the hallway and some little 5th graders running up, give him a hug. You know, they're talking to him. So when he brings them out, the whole point of the SDL is to reintegrate kids in the classroom. So if there's something small, we want the teacher to call him right away. He takes the student out and takes them back into class after they've calmed down or decides he needs to go to an administrator. So that cuts down on the behavior. Collegiality and professionalism, you can read that. Teacher level factors, we've talked about that. It fits into this category as well. And then I'm going to jump to, if you'll look at that chart right there, that tells you how important it is that we have effective teachers in terms of what the least effective. If a student comes in at 50%, you can expect the gains in 1 year, least effective 14 and most effective 53. Lest teachers think that we're saying it's all on them, this is even more powerful if you look here. If you want to know what our school goal is, we want to be the most effective school with the most effective teacher. Over 2 years' time, that same student comes in the 50th percentile. After 2 years of being at the most effective school and the most effective teacher, they leave you in 2 years at 96th percent. We get them for 4 years, folks, at our school, 5th through 8th. We can reach our goals if we work on it. Student level factors, we talked about the APTT, that's the academic parent-teacher teams. The learned intelligence, I could talk about that for a long time because it will get into crystallized versus fluid intelligence. Fluid intelligence, IQ, is if we gave everybody a puzzle here tonight, one of my APs or my chair over there is going to beat me, I promise you. They're going to be faster at it. Crystallized intelligence is that background knowledge. It's also IQ, but it is not static. And I know they're arguing now whether fluid is static or not, but it's not static and it has a more direct impact on academic performance. We have to increase the background knowledge of our students. One of the ways you do that is mentoring. Mentoring is not just big brother, big sister. There's science behind what we do in that mentoring program, and it increases crystallized intelligence. Vocabulary, that's a direct way. An indirect way to increase crystallized intelligence is to access vocabulary, academic vocabulary. So we're going to work on that as well. And of course, motivation, that's just a reminder there. And then part of what we're talking about is accountability. Our master schedule, is it set up? school improvement sounds complicated. We make it complicated, but in the end, it's just a lot of hard work. Here's what you have to do. Set your master schedule so that students can have the time to learn. So that meant in the summer, on a Sunday night one time, Ms. Sabo was redoing all of 5th grade after we met with 5th grade, who you can imagine being told, hey, we went to the training on our curriculum. We don't have enough time for our literacy block. 5th grade's pretty important. To their credit, we presented the problem, we presented solutions. They came back with a better solution. And then thanks to our admin team that made it happen, we had to change that schedule. But here's what you got to do. Have the time. You have to remediate content. If you teach me something and I don't get it, what are we going to do about that? That's the content. And then you have to make sure that any student who has skills gaps, that gets addressed in your intervention period. So you have your remediation, you have your intervention. If you find schools that aren't growing but they're doing wonderful teaching, look at those two things. You're going to find one of two things. Either the content is not being readdressed and they didn't get it, or there's skills gap, and that skills gap grows because we don't address it. So that master schedule is very important in terms of reaching our goals. And then the accountability. You know, one of the things I skipped over was the PDP that we have of collegiality and how we're going to address when you don't like what I'm going to say. I keep picking on Mr. Johnston, but he's assigned to our school, and we appreciate your support. So if he tells me, if he comes for that walkthrough we're saying, and he says, Baker, you said it was pretty quiet around here, and I saw X, Y, and Z. Now, I trust him, so it's not going to hurt. But without that trust and respect, I might take a blow there. And so we want to make sure that we can ask questions like this, and it's not personal. It's professional, and it's just the facts we're talking about. Because I told them, I'm going to ask you to do more than anyone should do in a year. Why? I've never moved this quickly before, but I know they're up to the task. We're building capacity. They have it. But because we're in year 2 of restart, we don't have the time. So I'm going to ask them to refine us all and agree to hold each other accountable. That starts with me. So if you see me acting in a way that you have not heard me say, go back to the original. What we see, what we hear, what we feel needs to match. When you do that, you'll be successful. And urgent times calls for strategy and hard work. And so for this reason, and because we need to hire great people, reward them and keep them, we gave them a raise. With the situation that we face ourselves with Restart, CSI, we actually are not hurting for money. We need to spend the money correctly. And one of the things I said we were going to do is invest in people. So I told you the MCL gets paid a stipend. If we're asking them to do more, they get paid. We're asking the teachers to do more, and we want them to stay there. We cannot afford to invest in them, and they keep leaving. So year 1, you sign on at Selma Middle, you get $1,000 extra. $500 of that is thank you for coming and choosing to be with us today. The other $500 is here's the culture that we're going after, and when you come here, this other $500 says you're going to work hard, you're going to hold people accountable, and you're going to implement the things that we talk about in PD. So you get paid twice a year. In November, you'll get a stipend, and then in May, you get a stipend. That continues until year 5. It goes up $500 each year. Year 5, you'll be at $3,000. That's an interesting, it's actually not arbitrary. If you coach in middle school and you coach 2 sports, you'll make around $3,000. By God, academics is as important as what's happening in athletically, right? So we believe they're working hard, and we want our teachers to as well work hard. So by year 5, you're making $3,000 extra dollars. We're very happy and excited to do that for them. They deserve it. So who will we choose to be? Are we going to be average, or are we going to live up to our potential and help students live up to their potential as well? And so we want to take that road that's less traveled, obviously. So I appreciate your listening as I kind of went on a little bit there, but I hope you see the passion that we come before you tonight with. Failure is not an option for us, and we have a plan, and we're going to work it, and I know that those students are capable of living up to the high standards. So I believe at this point in time, questions?
Mr. Baker, first, I just commend you on your energy that you carry to Selma Middle, and just the opportunities for each and every staff member as well as the student that walks through the door, and commend your administrative team as well as your sit chair. I was just talking to a county commissioner today about this very same thing. They said, Todd, if we want to get our low performing schools and really get them on the right track, we need to take our best teachers and put them in there to assist the younger teachers and move forward. I don't know if he stole your thunder, but the MCL is basically.
I like to think he stole our thunder.
Yeah, but
he was listening.
The MCL is similar to what he was talking about, and I commend you on putting that in place.
Thank you.
But more importantly, I've said this a lot of times in the past in board meetings, and we have quite a few Restart schools. My wife teaches at a Restart school. My daughter went through a Restart school in North Middle. And I think what we have not done a great job in the past is share our best practices. And I think tonight you all are setting a precedence about a Restart school and some of the best practices you're putting in place already in month 2 that you've been there. So I guess what I would like to see is you're meeting with West Smithfield and some of the others this week. What I would hope is that not only those schools, but the other Restart schools, as well as our others that are not in that category, sharing these best practices, because I believe that if we all work together, all schools included, we're going to move that needle, and it's not going to take much to do that. So I would hope that you would share some of these best practices with your colleagues, because I see what you're talking about, and I truly believe next year when we pull out the EVOS data that Selma Middle is going to be just catapulting through the roof. So thank you.
We certainly hope so, and I appreciate your comments. And yes, we are. Ms. Stevenson's shot with Ms. Thomas. In fact, we have a meeting October 8th. Is that correct? Of Restart schools to share ideas, and then we also work within our feeder pattern with the elementary and the high to make sure that we're sharing, because we see ourselves as a feeder pattern, not the individual schools. And I can't tell you how helpful that is, that I can run down the road, talk to Ms. Rosato. You got great growth this year. Talk to me, because I've got the 5th grade, and then we've got this middle school. And so I think your point's well made, that in a silo, we get whatever's in that silo, and so we can learn from one another.
Mr. Baker, I got to listen to you a couple years or so ago at Dr. Smith's class in Campbell, where you talked to people wanting to be principals, and I was wowed by you and your staff then. Again tonight, by you and your staff, you're doing great things. Just like Todd said, we got to share this good news with other Restart schools. Sounds like you got some amazing things going on, and I would just be shocked if it didn't turn around.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate
I appreciate
all
that.
of you.
And I have to say, I've learned a lot watching the Restarts over the last couple years. So we've got some good work going on there that we can learn from as well. So thank you.
Congratulations. I can already tell these scores will be going up. Everything's going to improve. 2 things. In December 2016, when the board discussed putting school resource officers in every middle school, in my mind, Selma Middle School would receive the most benefit. And I think that's going to contribute to your safe and orderly environment. I know it is. And I would love to say guarantee you're going to see 3-4 years, you're going to see a drastic improvement. And with you piloting the ship over here and this great staff that you have, and you mentioned crystallized intelligence and fluid intelligence, and I was forwarded an article where they're looking at the financial success of students who are getting this type of instruction that cultivates that crystallized intelligence and fluid intelligence. And how important is that for the students in our most socioeconomically challenged area in Johnston County? So what you've got going on is phenomenal. I'm glad you are where you are. I'm glad your staff is where they are. Look forward to seeing the improvement and thoroughly impressed with this.
Thank you. And if I'd actually ordered supper, there's some biological responses that our students have to overcome. So I've been talking last year with Dr. Liverman, who's from town, about resiliency and how we can get the biological response of our body. When you talk about cortisol and those stress levels, if you're not balanced, then you cannot receive. So you have to activate the vagus nerve, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're actually going to pilot that in our MCL classes to see about if we address biological responses through resiliency, what that outcome would be. And
Because when you have that accumulation of facts and that ability to reason and a group of people that's cultivating that in you, the biological response is astounding. You're exactly right.
Yeah, you know, I'm a passionate person, as you can tell, and so younger in life, when I would get angry, I don't get angry anymore, but, you know, I noticed that it's so true, fight or flight. And so when you're in survival mode, you're in that fight or flight, and you know, my parents would tell you trying to reason with me was difficult when I was younger and upset, because I'm ready to fight or flight. And so I think we miss and don't help students when we ignore some of these peripheral things that are actually at the center of why we're not learning. So, well, I appreciate you all allowing me to be there. It's been the biggest blessing. I could get emotional talking about being there. I just love them.
We appreciate your passion and your leadership, and, you know, leadership empowers leadership, whether it be with your staff or with your students. So thanks for what you do for the Selma community, and we expect big things. We're looking for big things, and I know it's coming, so
And
I
hold me
appreciate it.
accountable if we don't. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You know, the biggest term I've heard over all these presentations before we adjourn is, how many times has everybody been grateful for the curriculum that was purchased, that everybody has a standard to go by and teach and have the tools to do it. So it's, you know, money well spent. And I kudos to Board of Education and the members here for getting that done.
Mike, can I just share one
Yes,
thing
sir.
regarding the curriculum? I had a principal, I'm sure he doesn't mind me, Glendale Kinley, Cole Yarborough, sent me a text thanking me in a long text about how it's just benefited Glendale Kinley. And I sat in on a parent advisory council meeting just this past week, and it was reiterated again, the excitement that their teachers didn't have to go looking for, you know, what to teach and how it could correlate back to the standards. So it's been well received out in our schools.
Well, with that being said, I entertain Dr. Cosby. No, I have nothing. Any comments? With that being said, have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Todd Sutton, second by Teresa Grant. All those in favor, say. All those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you so much.